Okay, today's date is Sunday, March 16th, 2014. It is approximately 22:23 hours. This is Detective Jeffrey Stone with the Albuquerque Police Department Homicide Unit. We are here at 812 Piedra Vista Road Northeast. This is in reference to an officer-involved shooting that occurred today east of this residence up in the foothills area. Present in the house here is, if you could state your name.
Agent Jeremy Vaughn, New Mexico State Police.
And sir, if you could state your name.
Alexander Thickstun.
And Alexander, could you spell your first and last name for me?
ALEXANDER THICKSTUN.
And just for the tape, what is your date of birth, sir?
6/22/1981.
Okay, and this is currently your home address?
That's correct.
Okay, and who do you live here with?
My wife, Christine.
Okay, same last name, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, what is a good phone number for you?
937-654-7181.
And how long have you lived at this residence?
Since February 1st of this year.
Okay.
So about a month and a half.
About a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I understand that you were the 911 caller that initiated the police response here today?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you just, I'm going to give you the floor, just kind of go through everything that prompted you to call 911 and just go through everything that you observed or heard today until, basically, till you met me.
Okay. You just want it from today, not from the
We'll
prior
go back
events.
and talk about the previous incidents in a little while. Let's just start with today.
Sure thing. So today I went on a hike up U Mound. That's the name of this hill up here. And I noticed when I looked from the top, I saw a tarp and it looked like a lot of personal belongings, a backpack and stuff like that. So I went back to the house. I grabbed the dogs and I grabbed my pistol. I have a concealed carry license, so I concealed my pistol, and I went up to check it out. I knew two people had been living there before. I saw a clear plastic tarp behind these large rocks, so they were kind of concealed from the neighborhood. I saw backpacks, clothing, food, books, and then a lot of other stuff. I didn't lift up the clear tarp, but I could see that there was a lot of stuff under there. You had a lot of bags and backpacks and stuff like that. So a neighbor yelled out, and I couldn't understand him, so I said, "Hey, can I come down and talk to you?" Because my neighbor just 2 houses north of me. He said, so I went up to his fence and we talked. He said, "Yeah, I've been seeing these guys. They've been there for about a month and a half. I watched them through the binoculars. I think I have some photos of them and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to check out their belongings, see if they have any like stolen property or anything like that." I was also looking for weapons or drug paraphernalia before I called the police over. So I went back up a second time with the dogs. I looked through and it was still just the same thing. I didn't lift up the clear plastic tarp, but I could see that it was just his personals. So then I went back to the house, and the neighbor, Vic, came over. He said the guy who was living there just came back. So I went upstairs, and this was probably at about 5:15ish. I didn't see the guy at first, but I called the police and I said, I've got this homeless man living in my back area in the open space area, and he's been there for about a month or longer, and he has a lot of stuff there. Can you have an officer come check it out? I said, "Do you mind if the officer makes contact with you?" And I said, "Yes, have him come over here. I'll show them where they're camping out, the pile of rocks." So then we ended the phone conversation, and then I could see the gentleman sitting on top of the rock, and it was like right where his belongings were. He was sitting on the rock. So I called the police back and I said, "Okay, the gentleman is there now." I wanted to give him a heads up just so they knew. So I think it was about maybe like 30-45 minutes later the police arrived. I think it was like 5:30 or 5:45 when this happened. And it was 2 policemen, I showed him through the backyard. I showed him some photos of the two guys that were in my backyard. We can go into detail on that encounter later. I showed him where the rock was that they were hiding or living behind. So the two officers said they were going to drive down to Copper and take the trails from Copper and go up to the mound. So they got in their cars, they went to the end of Copper Avenue, and I went upstairs and I took my video camera and my iPhone, and I was going to watch from my porch up there. So about 10 minutes after that, I see the police. They're walking up the trail, and they go up the rocks to where that gentleman was, and they came around, and then they were on the side of the rocks. I couldn't see the gentleman behind the rocks, but they were on the side, and I heard them say, "Drop the knife, drop the knife." And they had their guns drawn, and he stood up. He was not cooperative. I could see that he had his right hand in his pocket, and they asked him to show his hands, and he wouldn't. Sometimes he would kind of start walking towards the officers, and they would continue their draw and issue warnings. He started yelling. He said things like, "If you come up here, I'm going to kill you." He said that he was with the Department of Defense, he was with OSI and all these other different agencies and stuff, and that he was working some really bizarre things. And he also made a lot of bizarre claims. He said that if he wanted to, he could make like $1 million or $10 million in a year, and all kinds of just strange stuff. He was a little off his rocker. More policemen arrived. We had 4 more come. So I escorted them through the yard, and they went straight up. It was the 6th policeman standing off with one guy. He was still at this time, he was standing on top of the rock, and he was still yelling at him, still issuing threats and stuff like that, going off about different subjects. It was just a very long rant. Then more policemen arrived. It seemed we had some SWAT outside, and the SWAT started setting up. I think they negotiated that they were going to get him a hotel for a week or something like that, just to try to calm him down and try to resolve it. They told him, we don't want to get anyone hurt, don't want to get anyone killed. And he said, "You guys are assaulting me. When you came up, you assaulted me," and was saying that, he would say that he was going to murder them, or that they were all going to get murdered. He gave a lot of indirect threats, like, "I don't want to see all you guys get murdered today." Just crazy things like that. In the end, we probably had about 20 police officers surrounding the area. They backed off. So you had some near him, you had some further down the trail. You had some police dogs come out. They were standing off for a little while. Then I saw a small group. It was a couple gentlemen with firearms and a police dog. They went up near to him. They were talking. They got him to put his backpack on, and he put on a sweater and his backpack, and he said he was going to come down. Then he became irate, and then he said, "Oh no, the deal's off, we're going to do a new deal," and he was just spouting off again. So there was another yelling match for a while. He was just yelling a lot. Towards the end, I think before 8 o'clock, when the police made their move, there was a flashbang, it seemed, went off. It was a loud explosion. And as soon as the explosion took off, I saw that he was still kind of standing. I couldn't exactly see what he was doing, but they were telling him to get down, get down. He was not getting down. And eventually, I think 10 seconds later, after the explosion, I heard shots fired. They fired, I think it was 5 shots at him. And I think he was still standing or still moving. I think he was still not cooperating. And I think I heard a 6th shot afterwards, probably 15 seconds later or so. But it seemed, from what I heard, it seemed like he had a knife on him. And he was also keeping his hands concealed so they couldn't see what he had. He was making threatening approaches towards them.
Okay. And was that about the extent of what you saw?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just kind of go back to the beginning. So you had mentioned that earlier today you had decided to go for a hike around U Mound, and that's the name of the mountain that's just directly behind in your backyard.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, is there access to the foothill area from your backyard, or do you have to jump the wall?
There's access. We have a gate in the back of our yard, so I can just walk directly from my yard and catch the trail and walk right up the mound.
Okay. Do you hike up there often?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably like once a week, once every 2 weeks. We've had a lot of rain recently, so I hadn't hiked it in like probably the past 2 weeks, but...
Okay. All right. So you're hiking around. About how long do you think you hiked around up there for?
I was probably on top of the mountain. I was probably up there for about 15 minutes. I think the hike in total lasted about 45 minutes.
Okay. Now, did you notice this tarp and stuff going up or coming back down?
It was when I was on the very top. I noticed it when I was on the top of the mountain.
And looking back down?
Yeah, and when I saw that, I'm like, oh geez, they're definitely living there.
Okay. Have you ever seen that stuff there before?
No.
Okay.
It's not that I hadn't seen stuff there before. I've seen trash in that area, but I've never seen the whole tarp thing there. But it had probably been about 2 or 3 weeks since I had been up that hill last.
Okay.
I apologize. Is it okay if I take a break and I'll
Yeah, let's just go ahead and pause it real quick, and we'll let you do the rest of that, and we'll get back to it.
Okay.
Okay, we're back on the record here, speaking with Alexander. So we were last touching on, you're up on top of the mountain, you were looking down at your house, and you could see was it a white or a clear tarp?
It was a clear tarp. And I also have photos I can provide you guys as well.
Okay, and it's the photos that you're downloading for us right now?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Now, are those photos you took today?
Correct.
Okay.
I took them with my iPhone.
Okay. So did you go back down and immediately go to that little camp area, or did you come home first?
I came home first. I had the dogs with me. I wanted to take them back and drink some water and grab my pistol.
Okay.
And then
what kind of pistol do you have?
I've got a Ruger. It's a LC 380.
And is the caliber 380?
Correct.
Okay. Was it fully loaded?
Yes.
And how many rounds does it hold?
7 with 1 in the chamber.
Okay, so did you have 8 total? 1 in the chamber, 7 in the magazine?
7 total. It's a 6-round magazine, and I had 1 in the chamber.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional magazines?
No.
Now, do you carry that in your pocket or in a holster?
I carry it in my pocket.
Okay. So you came down here, you grabbed some water, you grabbed your pistol, and then you went back up?
That's correct.
To the camp?
I grabbed the 2 dogs again and brought them back up to the camp.
Okay. So both of and they're Great Dane dogs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you brought both of your dogs, and all 3 of you went up to the camp?
Yep.
Okay. And when you got up there, was there anybody at the camp?
There was nobody at the camp at the time.
Okay. And you said that there was a clear tarp. Could you see what was under the tarp?
Yes, there was a lot of stuff under the tarp, and there was stuff around the tarp as well. There were a number of, they looked like backpacks. There were a number of, they looked like just bags that had food and stuff in it. There was a lot of clothing, a lot of food. There was like a Bear Grylls outdoor pocket knife thing that I saw. I was kind of looking for stolen equipment, because I suspected that perhaps he'd have stolen equipment up there. But I didn't go as far as to like pull the tarp up and look under it.
So you're just kind of browsing around with your eyes?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
You mentioned some kind of, you saw a knife up there?
I saw it looked like an outdoor tool. It looked like it was still in the...
Like a multi-tool? Like a Gerber?
Yeah, I couldn't really see it through the tarp, but it said Bear Grylls. It was like a survival edition outdoor tool.
Okay.
It looked like it could have been like a knife or something like that, or outdoor tool.
Okay. About how long do you think you were at the camp for, just kind of looking around?
So the first time I was there for about 2 or 3 minutes before I had my neighbor yell over, because he saw me up there and I think he wanted to get my attention and let me know that he was watching these guys too.
Okay. And this is your neighbor 2 doors down to the north?
Correct.
And what's his first name?
Vic. I don't know his last name.
Okay. So then Vic yells for you. So then did you walk down to him?
Yes.
And what did Vic tell you?
So he told me that he had seen the guys there for about a month and a half. He said that he had been watching them through binoculars and that he had taken some photos of them.
Okay.
He said that once he, confronted them from, I think, his backyard. He yelled at them saying, "Hey, you're not supposed to be out there." And I can't remember if it was one or both of them, but he said that the guy who was in the altercation today yelled back at him and said, "I have every right to be here," and blah, blah. And he started to walk away from his site, his campsite, yelling at him the entire time as he was walking off.
Okay. Okay.
And I told him I was going to call the police and report it today because I found his stuff.
And what did Vic say to that?
He said that he talked about how he thought the police didn't have jurisdiction in there, but that the open space something had. When I called the police on the phone, they said, "Oh yeah, well, we have jurisdiction in this area back here." So,
Okay.
but that's what we talked about. So I let him know I was going to call the authorities and report what I saw.
Okay.
But I also told him that I was going to go back and look for anything that was stolen or any
Okay.
weapons or anything like that.
Alrighty. Did you speak with any other neighbor besides Vic during this?
Yes, another neighbor named Bob, and I don't know his last name.
Do you know where he lives?
I don't know. I'm still so new to the area. But Bob, he walks up and down the street here, and he walks down the trail. And Bob was happening to be walking down the trail when I was talking to Vic, so Bob came by, and he joined the conversation.
So Bob was just walking on the trail that ran. Is that the one that runs parallel to the walls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's walking on that. He saw Vic and I, so we three chatted for a little while.
Did Bob say anything about knowing about these guys?
He knew about them. I don't think he added anything that we didn't know, though.
Okay. Okay.
I think he just was aware that they were there.
Did any of them say anything about having any problems with them?
Just Vic. Oh, yeah. Vic talked about how his wife could see them through the bedroom window. It really freaked out his wife when she saw them there.
Now, were they still up in the area, or were they closer to their yard?
They're still in that area. They're living there. In fact, my wife was very uncomfortable with having them around there.
Sure. And you said that Vic had dialogue with one of the guys
Yes.
before? And could you go over that again one more time?
So Vic said Vic was in his yard. The guy was in his campsite, and Vic told the guy, "Hey, you can't be there. You can't be, living there."
Right.
And the guy yelled back saying, "I can," and blah, 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 and just got irate. I don't know the specifics of the conversation, but he said when he confronted the guy yelled at him, then started to walk off towards Copper Road and was yelling at him the whole way.
Did he say when this happened?
No.
Okay. Did Bob mention it, having any kind of interaction with them?
No, I don't think Bob lives on the outskirts here.
Oh, okay.
I know my neighbor down here, she probably may have had some, involvement, but I've never talked to her about it.
Okay. All right.
I just know she was out there watching what was happening today.
Okay. So after you speak with Vic and Bob, do you go back up to the camp again, or do you come back to your house?
I go back up to the campsite again.
Okay.
So the first time I was only up there for like 2 or 3 minutes. I didn't get a really good look.
Okay. And how long do you think you were up there the second time?
Probably about 10 or 15 minutes.
And again, when you were up there the second time, was there anybody at the camp?
Not yet.
Okay. So you're there for 10 or 15 minutes, and then did you come back home?
I came back home.
Okay. So is that when you decided to call 911?
Yeah, and I didn't call them immediately. My wife and I were planning dinner.
Okay.
And I was telling my wife about what I had seen up there. I think it was about like 20 minutes, 15 minutes later maybe. Vic walked from his house down to mine. He said, "Hey, one of the guys came back." And that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to call the police and let them know.
Okay. Now, when you called, did you call 911 or 242 cops?
242 cops. So at the time, I thought it was a non-emergency.
Okay. And you said this occurred around 17:30?
Yeah, I'd say 5:15, 5:30-ish. I think it was 5. I can actually find out. I've got the log on my phone.
Okay.
So my first telephone call... I'm sorry. My first one was 3:53 p.m. and my second one was 4:23 p.m. So the first time I called them, it was 3:53. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. No, that's okay. You'd be a superhuman if you could remember every single detail about everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, 16:23 is when you call the second time?
Correct.
So the first time you advised him what you have going on, that the guy, had the guy shown up yet when you first called?
Vic said he had. I went back to look, but I couldn't verify.
Gotcha.
It was very possible he was behind the rocks. But after the phone call, then I saw him. He got on top of the rocks, and I could see him sitting on them.
And that's when you called again, just to let him know, hey, he is there, I saw him.
Correct.
Okay. And so about what time do you believe the first officer came here?
I think it was 5:15-ish or 5:30.
Did you take him back and show him where he was?
Yeah, it was 2 officers. They parked up front. I invited them into the yard, and I showed them some photos of the individuals that I had taken from a prior date on March 1st. I took them into the backyard, and I pointed from my backyard at the rock that they were living behind. And they said they were going to loop around to Copper and walk up the trail and go to the guys up there.
Okay. Did you see what they were driving, the 2 officers?
Yeah, they were driving, they each had their own police SUV.
Police SUVs.
So it was two police SUVs total.
Now, did they identify themselves as, were they wearing uniforms, police uniforms?
Yes.
Could you describe the uniforms to me?
They were black. I can't remember specifics. I know they were black. I did not pay attention to the markings. I think they said they were like open space police or something like that, but
okay.
I can't remember.
Did they have a badge on them?
Yeah.
Okay. Were they wearing any kind of like duty belt? Like you would typically see a police officer wear?
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that they both had their own individual police SUVs. Were they marked, like, did it say police on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember either of their names off the top of your head?
I do not.
And if you don't, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So you show them, and then they leave, and they drive to go around to Copper. About how long do you think that took until you saw them walking and engage the subject?
Probably about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. So around, like, say, 1740, 1745?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that once they left to go around, you had went to your porch to start basically watching this and recording it?
Correct. And I'm on my second story porch.
So on your balcony?
Correct, on my balcony. That's
Okay.
correct.
And what were you recording the incident with?
I have my Canon SX280 HS camera, and it has a video function on it.
Okay.
And my iPhone 5S.
Did you record the entire incident from start to finish in fragments?
Fragments, right.
Okay.
What happened was my camera died after about 5.5 minutes of video, so I went to my iPhone and I recorded probably like a minute or two while I was charging the battery on this.
Okay.
So I went back and forth. I didn't exactly record it from start to finish, but I wanted to record the highlights. And at times I wanted to have the camera ready just in case something were to happen. Because for a long time they were just, it was a standoff and he was just yelling and talking and stuff.
Okay.
And there was a lot of just, police patience going on.
So you said initially when the two open space officers contact him, they start having words?
It started off with them drawing their weapons and saying, "Drop the knife, drop the knife."
Did you actually see the guy with the knife?
I couldn't because his body was behind the rocks at the time.
Okay.
I could see his head. I could see him later, but he had his hand in his pocket. He had a sweater pocket or a jacket pocket. He had his hand in there, his right hand.
Okay.
And they were talking about the knife. So he said, I have every right to, own a weapon. It's just mine, blah, blah. So he was talking about it.
Okay.
I never actually got a good look to see if he actually had one, though.
Okay. Okay. Those first two officers, did you ever see them discharge their firearm or discharge any type of less lethal, like say a taser or a beanbag shotgun or anything like that?
No, they had their weapons drawn, but he stood his ground, they stood their ground. Every now and then he would approach them and they'd, re-aim and say, back off or, show me your hands, etc.
Okay.
But they didn't actually encounter each other. They didn't use any non-lethal or lethal defense.
Okay. So about how long did this go on for until other officers started arriving?
I want to say probably about 10 or 15 minutes later, you had 4 more police officers arrive.
Okay. So is this probably maybe closer to 6 o'clock, would you say?
I think so, yeah. And they showed up to our house, so my wife or me, I can't remember who, I think it was my wife, led them through the backyard so they could walk out the
And
entryway.
they went straight through your gate and
Correct.
up the hill.
Correct.
And how many officers did you see?
I think it was 4 more.
Okay, 4 more police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Were they all in police uniforms?
Yes.
Could you see where they went in relation to where the other 2 officers were?
Yes, they all grouped together. So it was all 6 of them on one side. If you're looking straight at the rock, straight at the mountain from my backyard, they were on the right side. And this guy, he said his name was Bob. Bob was sitting on top of the rocks at this point.
Okay. Do you know what the distance was between this guy and the police officers?
It's probably 25 feet,
25 feet?
maybe a little less.
So 25 feet or under?
Yeah.
Okay. Did anything change between what this guy was saying out when the other officers arrived?
He talked a lot of stuff. He said that he didn't recognize the authority of the Albuquerque police, and they're taking over the state police, and he wanted to talk to the state police. So I think they actually had some state police come out.
Did you actually see state police officers?
Yeah, they had a different uniform. They had the little lines going down their pant legs.
When did they show up? Do you remember?
They showed up probably 15, 30 minutes later, but they were trying to calm him down. They're saying, hey, look, the state police is here, talk with them. And he didn't he said, oh, well, I'm not talking to them, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it was just all over the place. We also had some other officers arrive with the state police that were not in uniform. They were in a more tactical, dark green looking uniform.
Dark green?
Yeah, and they were in unmarked trucks.
Could you describe those trucks, what you saw?
They were black. They were, I just know they were pickup trucks. There were two of them. Had a lot of compartment space in the back. They were pretty well armed. They had, I think one had an AR-15, one had a pump action shotgun. And they were just very tactically dressed.
Okay.
But they were unmarked black trucks.
Okay. Well, when do you think they arrived?
Probably about 6:30, 6:45.
And you said it was two black pickup trucks?
Correct.
Where did they park?
They parked on the other side of the street and just up north a little bit from where I'm at.
Okay. Did they have anything identifying them as a police officer?
Not that I know of. I wasn't really paying attention.
Gotcha.
But they definitely had a tactical look to them.
Tactical gear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you said one had what looked like an AR-15?
Yeah.
And another one had a pump-action shotgun?
I think so. I know about the AR-15. I'm not sure about the shotgun, but I think one had a shotgun.
Do you remember what color the shotgun was?
I think it was yellow.
Yellow?
Yeah. It was. It had some color to it.
Okay.
And I know that's an odd color for a gun, but it seemed to have some sort of color that was yellowish.
Okay. Where did these guys go?
They eventually they were hanging out front for a little bit. Then they eventually went to the yard and they went back into the open space area.
Okay.
I think they hung out near the trail. So I don't think they went up to where he was at originally. But after that, you had a lot of officers going back and forth and rearranging.
Okay.
And shortly after, you had more police show up. You had policemen with police dogs. I think I saw some SWAT come out.
SWAT guy. When do you think they showed up?
Oh, sometime between 6:45 and 7:15ish. But it's kind of hard to tell because I was upstairs the whole time. Every now and then I'd see one come through my yard. And it wasn't necessarily that they all came at once. You'd see individuals traveling.
Every now and then they would just show up.
Correct.
Okay. So when the SWAT guys, or who you believe are the SWAT guys, and the canine officer gets here, do you kind of see where they go up there? Do they stay down here, or do they go up towards where he is?
Some stay down here, some go up towards where he's at.
Okay. How about the canine officer? Did you see where he went?
Yeah, they went down to the trail, and for the first, probably, they hung around the trail for a while. And then eventually I saw one go up the trail to one side of where the guy was at, but they were pretty far off. I think they were outside of his sight, of his line of sight.
Okay.
And towards the end, leading up to his getting shot, you could see a group of policemen, tactical looking, with a police dog go up to where the rocks were.
Okay. When the tactical guys and the police dog guy went up to where it is, how close do you think they were to him?
Probably, at first, they were probably within 25 to 50 feet. After the flashbang, they got very close. They were probably 20 feet away, and they had their guns drawn at him. He was still standing after the flash, and I couldn't tell what he was doing, but he was still, faced their direction, and it looked like he was still standing.
Okay. So you'd mentioned earlier that he was putting on a sweater and putting on a backpack?
Correct.
Now, was that because did they convince him to do this, or why did he do that?
I think it's because they convinced him that that he negotiated a week stay at a hotel or something like that.
Okay.
And I think he was gearing up to get ready to go to the hotel or something.
Did you hear that dialogue between them?
I heard, I heard a lot of fragmented dialogue about a week at a hotel.
Okay. And he seemed kind of receptive to that?
Yeah, he did seem kind of receptive to that at the time.
Okay. So when he put on his sweatshirt and his backpack, is that when you heard the flashbang?
No. It was like probably 15 minutes afterwards. So he put on his sweater and his backpack, and he kind of walked towards them a little bit. Then he stopped. Then he ranted for a bit. In the exchange, he also threatened them again, saying that they're all gonna die or something like that. And it wasn't until he got much closer, but it was like another 10 or 15 minute standoff when he had his sweater and backpack on.
Okay. Okay.
So it's kind of hard to. I have my videos to kind of accompany what's been going on, but yeah, it's hard to say how long it was, but
okay. So you had mentioned that at one point you hear a flashbang. Did you actually see an officer throw the flashbang?
I didn't see an officer throw it. I guess I wasn't like paying attention at the time, but the flashbang certainly caught my attention.
Right.
It was a loud thud.
Sure.
So I turned on my phone and I aimed it right there, and I captured the shooting.
Okay.
From my phone.
So were you recording when the flashbang went off?
Just after, probably took me about a second or two just after the flashbang went off, and I had my phone in my hands. I just had to pull it up and hit the button.
Okay.
So it was just very shortly after the flashbang.
So the flashbang went off, and you said he was still standing up?
Yeah, it looked like he was still standing up,
and he was
still facing them.
Facing the officers?
Yeah.
And then you said that they were, the officers were closing distance with him?
Yes, they're demanding that he get down.
Okay. And did he ever get down?
I don't think he did.
Okay. Did you ever see what the police dog was doing?
I don't think the police dog went after him. I think they're still holding the police dog back.
Okay. And about how long from when the flashbang went off to when you heard gunshots? Probably
about 10 or 15 seconds.
10 or 15 seconds. After the gunshots, did you still see the guy standing up?
It looked like it. It looked like he dropped, but it looked like he was still getting up. I think later I heard a sixth shot.
Okay. And you said that was about 15 seconds afterwards?
Yeah, so it was the 5 shots, and I think like 5 or 10 seconds after that there was a sixth. But after the 5 shots, it looked like he was still standing and still facing him. He definitely dropped, but he was like not ready to give up.
Okay.
And I couldn't see if he had a knife or anything. It was very hard because it was starting to get darker.
Okay. And all those gunshots will be on your video?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first 5 are. I don't know if I got the 6th shot on video, but I know the first 5 I got on video.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you hear anything else after that? After the gunshots? Like were the officers saying anything or?
I know they were saying stuff, but I couldn't make out what it was. It sounded like after the barrage happened that he was down and they were just gathering what they could, or they're just recollecting themselves.
Okay. All right. Before we go in and talk about the past instances where you know about this guy and apparently this other guy, do you have any questions you want to bounce off?
Yeah, just real quick. Let's see. What was the gentleman wearing? Could you see that?
Yeah, he put on a Gap sweater. I think it was a gray Gap sweater. Before that, I have a hard time recollecting what he had, but he did have it looked like it was a camo rag that was tied off at the end. I think he had like a neutral colored shirt, a baggy kind of neutral colored shirt, and I think it had shirt pockets. It was either that or it was a sweater or a jacket. I can't remember the specifics now.
Okay. So like a bandana on his head?
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And then the sweater, you said, has pockets right around his abdomen?
I
pockets?
think it was that.
Okay.
The video will confirm what he was wearing, but
All right. And what throughout the day, from about 4 o'clock when it started to about the time of the shooting, can you describe for me the lighting? The lighting, how much sunlight you were getting, overcast?
Yeah, it seemed pretty clear outside.
Okay.
I think it was either clear day or partly cloudy. So the visibility was really good. Towards the end, I think it was like getting closer towards 8 o'clock. It was getting a little darker, but you could still see without a flashlight.
Okay. And how far away from you did all this take place, estimated?
I'd say probably maybe a little more than 100 yards, but maybe 100, 200 yards. It's kind of hard to judge the distance, but too close for comfort kind of thing.
Okay. And do you wear eyeglasses or contacts?
No.
No, pretty good vision?
2015 vision.
Okay.
Yep.
And then as far as hearing everything that was going on, you can hear pretty clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you real quick, the suspect, the gentleman, his voice, tone, and how loud it was, did that fluctuate, and can you kind of walk me through that?
Yeah. At times, there were times he'd be very irate. He was furious. He was making threats like, "I'll kill you guys if you come up here," or he'd make indirect threats like, "I don't want to see you guys all get murdered," that kind of stuff. And he'd go on for about 10 or 15 minutes like that, and then he'd kind of calm. He'd be a little more calm, and he'd still be like, yelling, but he'd be like, "I thought you guys were gonna get me a hotel for a week," or blah blah blah, and "Oh, I see a guy with a rifle up there. You said blah blah blah, but I see that guy. He's gonna kill me." A little more calm, but then every now and then he'd just get irate and like as loud as he could be. He was like screaming at the guys.
Okay. Were there times when you couldn't hear what he was saying?
Yeah, there were times I was in and out of the house. I was helping people through. Other times I'd be checking on my wife and stuff. I'd say probably about a third of the time I was watching the altercation. The other 2/3 I was like going around the house and whatnot.
Okay. When you were upstairs looking and listening, you could pretty much hear everything he said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You said that throughout this incident there were numerous police commands given. Can you kind of give me a rundown of what commands you heard?
Yeah, they wanted him to show his hands. They were telling him to drop the knife. They told him, don't turn around or turn away, that kind of thing. Like I guess he was not facing him, and they wanted him to face him or not. But they did give basic commands like that. Later they were negotiating like a hotel stay or something like that. And they said, okay, well, you have to come down. You have to don't bring any knives. You have to show us your hands. Blah blah blah. That kind of stuff.
Okay. Were there any commands given right around the time frame of the flashbang and the shooting?
Before the flashbang, I can't remember exactly. I just know well before that, like 15 minutes before, it looked like they were going to get him down. He was putting on his backpack and stuff, and then all of a sudden he changed his mind. After the flashbang, like immediately after, they started to approach him. They told him to get down, get down, get down. And they repeated it because he apparently wasn't doing it.
Okay. That was at what time frame?
This is probably just before 8 o'clock.
As far as the action is concerned, what's taking place right around that time? I'm sorry.
Before 8 o'clock, that's when the flashbang went off.
So the flashbang goes off, and then you hear police yelling.
Yeah, the
get down,
police
get
yelling,
down, get down.
Get down, get down.
Okay.
And then 10 to 15 seconds afterwards, I hear the 5 gunshots.
Okay. And you had described him not getting down at that point, not complying with those commands.
Correct. It looked like he wasn't down all the way.
Okay.
I think when he got shot, he fell, he dropped, but he was still, at their direction. He was still presenting a threat.
Okay. So at that point, let's just back up just a hair. There's the flashbang goes off. At the time the flashbang goes off, you and you put your eyes on him. Was he fully standing?
When the flashbang went off, it looked like he was fully standing.
Okay, and how much of him could you see?
I could see probably over 2/3 of him.
So maybe mid-thigh up, give or take? Or a
I think
more?
so, yeah.
Okay. And then you think he went down a little bit from there?
Yeah, I think after he was shot, it looked like he dropped to his knees or something, or he fell to all fours, but was, still up. And I think there was some movement or something. Of course, I have the video,
Okay.
which will, help show you. It'll give you a good idea of what happened.
Okay. And then I know I asked you about him, but what about the police commands and the police conversation? You could hear their portion of the police conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is because he was facing you more than they were. They were facing away from you, it seems like.
They were all facing each other. He was facing the policemen were facing him.
And how was that in regard to you? Was he facing you?
No, so I was on the porch. He was facing right towards the policeman, and the policemen were facing left.
So he's
towards
facing
him.
kind of south? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So you could pretty much hear both back and forth.
Right.
Left to right. Okay,
Yeah.
very good. And then you said it looked like he put on a sweater and he grabbed his bag, and you said the words, they looked like they were going to get him down. What did you mean by that?
It sounded from the fragmented conversation like they were negotiating, hey, if you give yourself up, we'll get you a month or a week stay in a hotel. And I think originally he was going to go for it. And I think halfway through, when he was about to come down, and then he stops, and I think halfway through he got irate again and said, all right, well, we're going to change the deal, blah, blah, blah. And then he was non-compliant again.
Do you know what made him go irate from that?
I don't.
Something the officer said, or are you not sure?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there was a trigger for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what sounds to me like a sort of this description of his demeanor being up and down, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was pretty extreme up and downs?
Yeah,
Okay.
really extreme. And then the whole time he was like his calm was very assertive, very, very abrasive. Just still, yelling, very directive, that kind of thing.
And that is what you described as his more calm state?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't really think he had a calm state.
Got it. So it's more calm state. Got it.
Right.
You'd mentioned the SWAT guys had showed up. How would you describe the SWAT guys? What made you believe they were SWAT operators?
The gear, some of them had helmets. They had tactical style rifles like AR-15s and M4s. They were well suited up.
Okay. And then kind of throughout this whole scenario, you described this gentleman as not cooperative with the police commands. You said you could hear those commands. They were clear. Can you just give me a rundown of the things that he did, didn't do, said, didn't say that led you to believe that?
Well, he was very distrusting of them. He said he didn't recognize their authority a number of times. He said he was in the Department of Defense and he was in Special Forces, and he could get them knocked out and that kind of stuff. He was out there. I believe he felt like he was above them. He was better than them, and they're like the part of the big government conspiracy that he's worked up or something like that. So he felt that they were assaulting him, they were invading him, they were violating his rights. And he could get on the phone and at any minute and call someone and get them fired or something like that. He made a bunch of outrageous claims like that.
Okay. As far as actions and things that he said versus their commands, for example, you said that they said, "Show me your hands." Mm-hmm. He did not.
No, he was not cooperative.
Okay, and they said, "Drop the knife." Mm-hmm. And it didn't appear as though he...
It didn't appear because they repeated it. There were instances where, especially in the beginning, they repeated it over and over again. And it seemed like he just didn't care.
And could you see the knives or anything he was holding?
I could not.
Okay. All right. And there was a second gentleman that's been reported potentially in the area, at least in the last month and a half. Have you seen that gentleman?
Not today.
Okay.
Last time I saw him was March 1st.
Okay.
And I do have photos that can accompany him.
Okay. And we can get those to Frank?
Absolutely.
Great. And you said March 1st?
March 1st, yeah.
We know anything about him?
Do we what?
Do we know anything about him? Caucasian, male?
Oh, yeah. The other kid is he's a younger black male.
Okay.
I can't really guess his age, but I've got quite a few photos of him.
Okay.
And I can show some of them here. So this is one close-up I've got of him. This is another one. He wears pajama bottoms. This is them. Yeah, there's some more photos of him. I've got some of them walking away.
Okay.
He usually wears pajama bottoms. He usually has a hoodie.
Okay. And is this the other gentleman that we've been discussing?
I think that's the same guy.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in the same spot. He's wearing different clothing, but they were living up there. This is like 7.
And you think that's the same guy?
Yeah, I think so. He looked more raggedy today. Here is colder on March 1st. He was all dressed up in winter gear. He looks a lot more raggedy today.
Okay. And the gentleman you saw today, the police were interacting with, how would you describe him? For example, you might describe me as a Caucasian male, 6'2", 6'3", 195 pounds, etc.
Yeah, I think he was probably part Caucasian, part black.
Okay.
He was like average build. I think is probably, I don't know how old he is, probably in his 30s or so. Really grizzled. The beard. Very aggressive demeanor. He seems like a really aggressive guy.
Okay.
Probably 5'8", 5'9", but it's hard to tell.
Anybody else you've seen around those two guys?
No, just those two guys.
Just the two?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The only other thing we need to do is just document your pistol. We just want to take a couple of photographs of it, get the serial number and things like that.
I've got it in my safe if you'd like to see it now.
No problem. We'll wait till the interview's finished.
Okay.
You interview your wife, and then we'll do that at the very end.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about real quick the past instances with this guy.
Sure.
So just run me through, the first time that you noticed these guys, what it is that you've been noticing about these guys, what's been concerning to you. Just kind of run that.
First encounter I had with them, and I've got some notes if I can pull them up.
Absolutely.
Okay. First encounter I had with these guys was, I believe it was February 27th.
Would you mind sharing those notes with Frank as well?
Absolutely. I can email these to you guys. I drafted up an email that I can send to you.
Great.
I'm sorry. February 25th at 11:30 p.m. So 11:30 p.m. The dogs are barking hysterically. They just won't stop. I opened up the door and I called for them, and they didn't respond. They're still barking. So I went downstairs to grab them out from the backyard, and I hear like a loud altercation coming from over there, coming from where that rock is at. And this is the first time I noticed them. So it's 11:30 at night. You've got these two guys behind this rock, yet one screaming at the other. I think it was the guy today who called himself Bob, screaming at the younger black kid. And he was yelling all kinds of stuff about how, everything's taken away from him. He's ruined. Talking about how the government, $500 billion bailout and stuff like that. Just all this outlandish stuff. It was very suspicious, so I called the police, and at first they said, "Do you want to make contact with the police or no contact?" I elected not to make contact with them, but I gave the operator directions on how to get to where they were. I called back later, a separate day. They said a policeman did drive down Piedra Vista about 16 minutes later, but I don't think he pulled over and checked out the area. So after I had called the police at 11:30ish, I watched the altercation I watched them for about an hour, and he was yelling at the kid for about a half hour, and I think like an hour later, probably like 12:30 or 1 a.m., the younger kid leaves, and he's setting up his he was setting up a blanket, and he had a flashlight, so it looked like he was going to bed for the night in that area.
Okay.
And I think about 1:30 I went to bed. So that was the February 27th incident.
27th or 25th?
Oh, I'm sorry, the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then March 1st, my wife was in the shower, and she could see from the shower window 2 men behind that rock, the same location where we heard that verbal altercation. And this is at like 7 in the morning. So I took this camera out, and I got a bunch of photos of their faces just in case I need it down the road, which turns out I did. And I've got them on my phone here, and I can give you guys those photos.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have any dialogue with them that day, or did you just take photos of them?
No, I just took photos of them.
Okay.
And it looked like they were getting ready. It looked like they were eating and getting dressed. And then they walked down to Copper and went down Copper.
Okay. All right. Was there another time after that?
No, I don't think I've had any. And part of it was I just wasn't paying attention. But I think it was another 2 weeks before I'd hiked and noticed. Well, after the March 1st thing, when I noticed that, yes, there were for sure people camping there, I did walk up there to look, probably the next day, March 2nd, I went out, and I looked at the area that they were at, and there was trash, but they didn't have like camp set up at that point. But there was definitely signs that there were people like living there, just I don't think there are any book bags or anything like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen any other people up there besides the 2 that you showed in the picture today, or that you described today?
Not living there. You have a lot of hikers in this area,
right?
And there'll be people hiking in the rocks and climbing up, but nobody staying in that area.
Okay. So to you, throughout this whole time since you first saw them until now, does it appear to you that they are living up there in the foothills area? Okay. And are they occupying like the same area, the same rock you keep talking about?
Yep.
And was that the same area where all of this went down today with the police?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else about what we've discussed tonight, about what happened today or in the past couple of days, that I have not asked you think that's important?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, we just want to make sure Frank's going to get some photos, Jeff's going to get some emails, and then Frank's got audio and video download. Is there any other software?
No, I'll just finish with the video. I'll get that transferred to him.
Okay.
I can shoot you this email now. It's going to come from my wife's email address.
That's fine. I'll give you my card. It has my email on it. Let's go ahead and end the interview at 23:26 hours.